Linux Mint forums went down last month. Thousands of users blocked. The cause? Not hackers, but an army of AI bots that literally destroyed the servers. If you've been curious about why Linux Mint forums became practically unusable in January 2026, stick with me because what happened is fascinating and honestly a bit worrying for the future of the internet. I'm talking about one of the most popular Linux distributions in the world, with over 1 million active users that suddenly couldn't respond to its community's requests. I'll explore what happened, why bots and AIs have become the #1 problem, and what extreme measures the developers had to take to save the situation. In the official post from February 2026, Clement Lefebvre, the leader of the Linux Mint team, did something unusual for a developer. He publicly apologized to forum users, and these weren't empty apologies. The problem was real and affected thousands of users worldwide. The Linux Mint forums became practically unusable last month. Users faced incredibly slow speeds, connection errors, and in the most severe cases, complete inability to access the platform. Imagine this. You have a technical problem, you want to ask the community for help, which is one of the most active and friendly in the Linux ecosystem, but you simply can't access the forum. The frustration was immense. But what was the real cause? No, it wasn't a coordinated cyber attack. It wasn't a code problem or misconfiguration. The cause was much more insidious and harder to fight. An extremely high volume of fake traffic coming from artificial intelligences, bots, automated scripts, and web crawlers. Think about it. In our digital age, the internet is full of software robots that continuously scan web pages. Some are useful, like Google crawlers that index sites for search results. Others are completely useless or even harmful. Spam bots, aggressive data scrapers, and more recently, artificial intelligence models trying to collect as much data as possible for training. The Linux Mint team discovered that the vast majority of traffic they were receiving wasn't coming from real users, but from these automated entities. The server was literally overwhelmed. It was like trying to drive on a highway that's 90% blocked by driverless vehicles that just take up space without any useful purpose. To understand the severity of the situation, you need to realize how popular the Linux Mint forums are. With over 1 million active users and tens of thousands of new posts every month, they represent a central hub for the Linux Mint community. When these forums go down, it's not just an inconvenience. It's a serious problem that affects users' ability to get technical support, share knowledge, and contribute to improving the distribution. Last month, the server reached its absolute limit. Processing resources were exhausted, bandwidth was saturated, and real users, those who actually needed help or wanted to contribute, were left out. Imagine being a new Linux user, maybe a student or someone who just transitioned from Windows, and when you try to access the forum for help, you get errors or pages that take minutes to load. The Linux Mint team didn't sit idly by. They implemented a multi-layered strategy to combat this problem. The first step was implementing Security WAF, a web application firewall. This acts as an intelligent filter, analyzing traffic before it reaches the server. But, as the developers acknowledged, it wasn't enough. The problem was too complex and too massive for a single solution. They needed time to develop an efficient method of filtering bad traffic. It's not simple at all. You need to be able to distinguish between a legitimate bot, like Googlebot indexing the site for search results, and a malicious or simply useless bot that just consumes resources. You need to identify behavior patterns, analyze HTTP headers, verify IP addresses, and implement verification systems that don't affect real users. During these optimization efforts, some users started getting 403 errors, the standard HTTP signal for forbidden access. If you're facing this error, the Linux Mint team had simple but important advice. Make sure your browser is up to date. Old browsers can be misinterpreted by modern security systems as potentially dangerous or behaving in unusual ways. But software solutions weren't the only measures. Linux Mint also made a significant hardware investment. They upgraded the server dramatically. CPU capacity was increased tenfold, from X to 10x. This means the server can process 10 times more simultaneous requests. Bandwidth was doubled, allowing the transfer of twice as much data at the same time. These upgrades aren't cheap. For an open source project that relies largely on donations, such an investment is significant, but it was necessary. Without adequate hardware resources, even the best software solutions couldn't handle the traffic volume. This whole situation reminds me of an important reality. Open source projects, no matter how large and popular, face real challenges in maintaining their infrastructure. Linux Mint is supported by donations. In December 2025, they received donations from over 1,000 people, an unprecedented record. This is proof of how much the distribution is appreciated. But modern infrastructure costs money, especially when you have to fight against an ocean of automated traffic. The forum problems also had an emotional impact on the community. Many people felt disconnected from their support network. For many Linux Mint users, especially beginners, the forums are a lifeline. They're the place where they can ask stupid questions without being judged, where they can find step-by-step guides, and where they can feel part of a larger community. This experience teaches me several important lessons. First, automated traffic is a real and growing problem on the internet. As artificial intelligence models become more sophisticated and widespread, their demand for training data grows exponentially. Websites need to be prepared to face this wave of non-human traffic. Second, transparency is crucial. The fact that Clem publicly apologised and explained the problem in detail showed the maturity and respect of the Linux Mint team for their community. They didn't try to hide the problem or blame something else. They were open, honest, and proactive in communication. Third, supporting open source projects is more important than ever. Donations aren't just nice to have, they're essential for these projects to function, develop, and respond to modern challenges. The Linux Mint problem isn't isolated. Many websites and services face similar challenges. From Wikipedia to Stack Overflow, from gaming forums to news sites, everyone is fighting this tsunami of automated traffic. Some large companies have resources to implement complex and expensive solutions. But for community projects, for open source initiatives that rely on volunteering and donations, things are much more complicated. They need to find a delicate balance between security, accessibility, and costs. At the current moment, the Linux Mint forums are working much better. The combination of improved traffic filtering and hardware upgrades has made a dramatic difference. Users report normal loading speeds and a much more pleasant experience. But the fight isn't over. Automated traffic continues to evolve. Bots are becoming more sophisticated, harder to detect. Artificial intelligences are learning to mimic human behaviour better. It's an ongoing race between those building protection systems and those trying to bypass them. The Linux Mint Forum situation in January 2026 is more than just a solved technical problem. It's a window into the modern challenges of the internet, into the realities of open source projects, and into the importance of digital communities. It shows me that behind every Linux distribution, behind every forum and every community platform, there are real people working hard to keep things functional. It shows me that our donations really matter. They enable hardware upgrades, pay for bandwidth, cover development costs. And most importantly, it shows me that transparency and open communication are fundamental in a healthy community. The fact that Linux Mint didn't hide the problems, but chose to be open about them and about the implemented solutions, strengthens community trust. If you use Linux Mint or any other open source project, consider making a donation, no matter how small. Every contribution helps these projects stay alive, develop, and face modern challenges. And if you encounter problems, be patient. Behind every error is probably a team working hard to fix it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your thoughts on this situation. See you next time.